joining. I'm excited to moderate today's panel with some of our artists, curators, and the designers of the Support Black Designers mural installed in the Daniels Building, North Facade. I'm Aliya Karmali, an executive curator for the Daniels Art Directive in 2019-2020, and one of the curators for the mural. So we are recording the session and hopefully live streaming on the Daniels faculty's YouTube channel. All non-video participants won't be shown, so if you don't want to be shown, you can just turn off your camera. We'll start with a land acknowledgement. So we can switch to our next slides, and I can read that. We'll start with the land acknowledgement, then the panel and the Q&A. You can ask questions here by raising your hand or sending it in the chat to Janet or Christina. You can also send questions anonymously over Google Forms at tinyurl.com/SBD panel. The University of Toronto and the Daniels faculty is situated on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe and the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Whether you are in Toronto or elsewhere, I invite you to pause for a moment and ponder over the land you are situated on and your relationship with it. And in my experience as a child of immigrants, it was extremely important for me to understand that the land that I and my parents currently live on is a land that I'm a guest on. And it's my responsibility to learn about the history of this land and what I can do to be an ally for the First Nations. We'll go to the next slide. The Daniels Art Directive is a student-led club at the University of Toronto who created this mural with designers Ashita, Parekh, and Tolu Alabi here today. And our next slide. Installed from October 2020 to May 2021, the mural is a call to action for dismantling systemic racism in design. You can check out our website for more, and that will be in our chat box soon. So now let's meet our fabulous guests. And these are the artists. And the next slide. Okay, so this is me. I'm an emerging artist and designer who recently graduated from the Masters of Landscape Architecture program at Daniels. My practice explores the relationships between space, technology, and the human spirit. Next, we have Renee Powell-Hines. She is an artist, graphic designer, and aspiring architect. She holds an honors Bachelor of Arts degree in Architectural Studies from the University of Toronto. Renee has a passion for community engagement, sustainability, and equity in the realm of design, and is part of the executive team for the UofT club called Black Students in Design. And this is Renee's painting. Her painting was a pixel in the mural and in the word designers, which will come up in the next slide. Awesome, just there in the D. So our next guest is Carla Don. She's an independent designer working and living out of Barbados. She enjoys snorkeling and socializing. Carla makes island-inspired decor and artwork. You can check out her work on Instagram. She's an artist in the mural, and you'll see her 7 pixels make up the word. So we'll just keep on going through her works. And her work makes up the word supports, just over there. Next, we have Tolu Alabi. She's an alumna of the Daniels faculty. She completed her undergraduate degree in Architectural Studies at UofT in 2016 and Master of Science in Urban Planning, also at UofT in 2018. She currently works as a zoning examiner for the City of Toronto, and she's a designer of the mural. Ashita, Parekh was born and raised in Mumbai, India, and is also an alumna of the Daniels faculty. She completed her undergraduate degree in Architectural Studies at the University of Toronto in 2016 and her MArch in Urban Design degree from the Bartlett School of Architecture, UCL, London, England in 2017. She currently works as an urban designer at Perkins & Will. She is also a freelance writer and also one of the designers of the mural. And finally, we have Michelle Ng. She's a Toronto-based artist, curator, and storyteller who co-founded the Daniels Art Directive in 2019 and led the curator team of the mural. Some of the other curators are here today that you'll see just in the Zoom link. All right, now we can begin. We're going to talk about the mural. All right, so starting with Renee, we'll just see her work quickly and then we'll ask Renee to speak. So this is her work. So Renee, why was painting this portrait important, and who is this person that you've painted?
Yes, so this portrait is of Kania Blockland, and she is a pretty prominent and very active figure, not only for Black activism, but also LGBTQ plus activism and representation. And although she is very prominent in these two areas, that isn't really the reason that I chose her as my subject of the painting. Since the reignition of the Black Lives Matter movement, I've been seeing a lot of Black focused artworks that were really centered around protest and violence, and some artworks that are meant to tell the horrifying side of the historical legacy of Black people, which unfortunately I didn't get to see a lot of Black focused artwork that kind of focused on contemporary Black representation, like Black students sitting in a courtyard or playing or anything like that. And even though I think it's incredibly important to acknowledge the violence and hardships that racialized communities have gone through and continue to go through, I think it's also important to highlight and acknowledge where we are today, and which can also be seen in an activist light to stress how much we deserve to just be treated equally and just regularly.
Thanks, Renee. It's so important to see Black creatives for their art as well as their race, and so seeing them depicted in all settings is important. Karla submitted powerful text-based work in the mural, so let's pull up one or two of her works and discuss them. Sanjana, if you can pull up. Amazing things. So I'll just read it out loud. One of her works reads, I would like to learn more about hurricane preparedness. Some of us live in hot climates. The zero energy buildings will not be a feature at our latitude. We learn about snow, but what about an elective on the tropics? There are some beautiful homes there built for the heat that are hundreds of years old. And we'll go to our next one. Black designers are already supported by the public. When will they be in the institutions? Amazing. Thanks, Sanjana. So Karla, could you speak about all your submissions in a general sense and talk about these particular works that we've shown?
So I submitted 7 panels for the Support Black Designers mural, and the common threads where all of them was that they were observations and sentiments I developed going through the Daniels faculty and design school in general as a Black student. For those of you who may not know, I attended Daniels for undergrad in visual studies and architecture, as well as grad school. It seems to me as if, to discuss the last panel that you put up on the slides, it seems to me as if society consumes and venerates Black art and design fairly ubiquitously, but it is not yet reflected in academia, where except for maybe a survey class, you may not encounter Black creators at all. I never had a Black TA or professor, and that panel was a call to action to represent Black creators inside the architecture pedagogy the way they are in pop culture.
So important. Thanks so much, Karla. Your messaging resonates so well with the discussions we hope to achieve today, so I would love to hear more about it when you speak. And I encourage the audience to take a look at the rest of the submissions that are on Support Black Designers website and our Instagram. So Tolu, the original call for submissions for the Support Black Designers mural was open to all people. However, the final product was limited to Black individuals. Why was that an important move to make?
It wasn't an easy decision to make. When we opened the call for mural submission, for artwork submission, we realized that in order to be in keeping with the message, based on the advice that we got from judges and advisors on this project, we realized that it was better for us to go with the works that were only submitted by Black designers. And it was also very, very important for us to be able to put a voice to the works of Black designers. Everyone understands that message differently. Everyone interprets it differently, and they can put it in different mediums. And we just hoped to put that in the mural to show that there's a variety of voices even within Black designers, but this particular message, this is how we, I guess some of us would interpret that message.
Thanks, Tolu. I mean, it's a bold and powerful move to make to limit acceptance after the submission deadline, but I believe it's a powerful message to deliver, and it fits the Support Black Designers narrative and message of the mural. And in fact, Michelle, how did you ensure the most participation from the Black community?
Right. So a DOTA call for pixels only resulted in 20% submissions from Black designers. This has always been a community project. So once Ashita and Tolu's design won the popular vote from the dance community, we consulted community members. For example, our jury panel was had majority Black members, professors from Banani and Jessica from Daniels, and then the vice president, Adriana of the Black Students Association. And we also met Black Students in Design, which is a club that Renee's a part of actually at Daniels. So we had those before this design. We also had like town halls and like surveys as well. But yeah, it was really important to us to get that community consultation, of course, being understanding of their time and emotional capacity, given all that was going on that summer and still is. But yeah, moving forward, it would have been nice to start from the very beginning of the process with them, but we're very grateful to all our advisors and the jury panel, especially Tolu and Ashita as designers who did so much. And yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. It was a learning process. We kept on learning as we were going and connecting with other people and networks, and I'm glad it expanded and grew to where it is before, where it was not before. Karla and Renee, I'm going to ask both of you guys this question. Since there aren't enough artistic opportunities for marginalized communities, how does it feel to feature your artwork in a mural with other Black artists and creatives? So I'll ask Renee that question first.
I really enjoyed the fact that the mural is highlighting Black creatives, which I think was a really brave and bold move, like you said, Aliya, to change the submission requirements after the fact. But I do think it was well needed. And you're absolutely right, like Tolu, it does give us a chance for our voices to be heard and to actually put a mark on our opinions, which I found great. And I also really appreciated the recognition after the fact, like talks like these, how we kind of kept the conversation going and got to share our ideas and opinions rather than the mural just being the beginning and the end of the conversation.
Amazing. And Karla, how did you feel about being part of a message that was just for Black artists and creatives to the world? You're a mute.
I think it's a very important work. Being from a majority Black country, I've been spoiled to be a part of exhibitions that have been majority Black before. But I think this one is all the more meaningful in a space where Black people may not always take up the most space or have their points of view be reflected in mainstream discourse. And it could not have happened at a more important time. I think that it was commendable for the school and the students to make it this sort of gesture, knowing that architecture has sometimes historically been used as a tool to hide and erase Black people, from Monticello in Virginia to Africville in Halifax. And I do like how you guys have kept the conversation going, as Renee has said. And I think the space is very important, and you've created a great space for discussion and dialogue.
So we're super grateful to you guys to allow us to have this continued conversation and being here today as well. And it's incredible to hear both of your opinions and of course the different perspectives you hold, because Renee was born and raised here, whereas you, Karla, you were located and are located in Barbados. So you guys have different takes on the murals and what it means to be in a all Black mural. So let's continue speaking about the mural, actually. Michelle, there were many issues rising in Toronto last year. What was happening at Daniels that the Support Black Designers mural won the popular vote, in your opinion?
I do feel like maybe Tolu and Ashita can answer better, but I guess my own perspective. So I know with quarantine, there was a lot of push for social change, which of course isn't new, but I think people kind of really rallied together. For example, a lot of student groups at Daniels, the Student Equity Alliance formed shortly after a lot of students worked on this letter directed to the Daniels faculty, asking them to do better, especially in terms of anti-Black systemic racism. So that was happening. Of course, like the Black Lives Matter movement with that as well. And then there's also other clubs being formed, like Making Difference TO, and especially Black Students in Design, which has done a lot of phenomenal work as well, which maybe Renee can speak more about later. But yeah, in my opinion, I guess being offline and still being able to see this message on the building and like being able to connect on social media kind of really made us want to create more change in the world, I guess. I don't know if Tolu, Ashita, Renee, or Karla want to speak more about their experience.
Yeah, feel free to if you want to say anything.
That this just like sort of also comes from when we were in school and like what we experienced, and we just thought that if the space was to be used, it was for this issue. Like that's what the space needs to be used for. That's why we submitted. I can't particularly speak about what was happening in the institution at the time because I wasn't in school then, but for us, I think it was more about what we experienced both as students and as professionals in the design discipline. Just wanted to do something about it.
If I'm to add anything, I think I attended some meetings where it was primarily like Black students at Daniels, and it was very moving for me. It was also very emotional because it can be very isolating in school, but then when you hear other people talking about how they felt or their experiences, it was very important. Like at that point, it started to like bring forward like the reality of the situation. Like this is not just something, it's not an isolated event. So many people passed through Daniels, and this message was very, very important. It's not just a message, as Ashita and we keep saying this, it's not just a message, it's about the practical changes that we hope to see at Daniels, across the university, and in other design schools as well.
Yeah, it's a call to action. It's really to make our voices heard, and especially the artists' voices heard. Even my experience at Daniels is very similar, that we don't have that kind of exposure that we're going to get into in the rest of the panel, but that exposure doesn't really exist too much at Daniels yet, but it's working its way up. And so this call is really that big push that we need to see that change right now. And this time for the Daniels faculty is probably going to be remembered as a pivotal time, because it really showed the faculty and the school and the rest of the world that the students have the power to make the change here at the school, and also just the design industry, the global design industry. So power to you guys. And it all happened virtually. So imagine what we can do in person. So I'm extremely, extremely impressed. With only the building facade, we still made an impact. And talking about the building facade, Ashita, why was it important that the SBD mural be on the facade of the Daniels building? And what advantages did a creative visual project like this have over other ways, such as literature or discussion-based, to deliver a similar message? I'm getting tongue-tied.
Okay, so in my opinion, the reason why this was important to be showcased on the Daniels facade is because the University of Toronto is highly regarded as an institution in the discipline of design. And it is important that issues like this, like systemic racism, are very explicitly addressed at these spaces. It also sets an important precedent and an example for other institutions of design to learn from and build on in terms of supporting Black designers. In terms of creative advantages, I think one of the biggest advantages was that this project just the size of it and like how eye-catching this was. Because of the size and like the powerful message, this mural was covered, like I mentioned before, on national television, and it was like published in media worldwide. Also, the fact that this mural was a part of the DesignTO Festival really helped garner more attention to this longstanding issue, and it really gave this project and its artists like an even bigger platform to have their voices heard. So that was great.
Remind me, what was the award that the mural won on the DesignTO?
Question. It was, I think, it was like the best
People's Choice.
Yeah, People's Choice, and then there were two, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah, there was a
Good
People's
question.
Choice, and I think there was like a wall installation, like the best
Oh, yeah. Window installation.
window installation.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
No, that was
so
good.
yeah, it's really exciting to see the mural being showcased on so many media channels. I think as it started growing, we're getting that traction, and I loved getting that public attention that we are really trying to get at, actually.
Yeah, and
And
that public attention. Oh, sorry. The
keep on
public
going.
attention just also helps, like actually, it helps make these voices stronger, and like puts more pressure on these institutions to actually make a change. So that was very helpful, I think.
Yeah, and which is also why it was so important to continue the programming so that the voices don't get lost.
Yeah.
And in speaking about visual representation, Renee, could you describe your practice and how it intersects with issues on Black representation? And how do you represent Black people in your architectural projects?
Yeah, definitely. So in my personal practice, like I had said a bit earlier, I try to integrate Black people in a more contemporary and I guess casual sense, like using more diverse looking line drawings in my architectural renders in order to kind of highlight the diverse populations that use the spaces that we work in. I also have had more of a focus on diversity and equity in my design work in my last few projects, especially. One term project that I recently worked on was about highlighting the at times uncomfortable position and experiences of women of color in the workplace, which was a project that I worked on, I think the end of last year into this year. It's kind of still ongoing. I'm still working on certain aspects of it. And another project I worked on was a printmaking course where the focus was on humankind's kind of destruction and the deterioration of the planet, but it was visualized through the body of Mother Nature, which was represented by a Black woman for certain reasons that I described in the project. And I use these to try and kind of bring Black people and their experiences into the focus of my work. And I also try and use what platform I have to highlight other Black creatives. Like I did a project last year where I did collages of historically prominent artists, like their work mixed with Black creatives kind of in my community or in my network that aren't as well known, and made a new artwork based on the collage of both of them. And they spoke to a variety of things like the sexualization of Black women in art and other topics, but it was also kind of just to bring light to these works in the Black community that aren't as well known, but are really important in my opinion.
Thanks so much, Renee. And it's also so very hard to find Black, like, what's it called? Those vectors, the people that you hear, so hard.
It really is.
So it's unfortunate. Actually, Karla, I have a question related to that. Since you did your visual studies program here at Daniels, did you also have a similar experience? So how did you feel that Black people represented maybe in your class, or how you yourself chose to?
I found that visual studies was a lot more inclusive. I didn't necessarily have a Black professor or a TA, but I felt like we had examples of Black artists and Black creators more often in visual studies. And there was a lot more opportunity to put my lived experiences in my work rather than sometimes very sterile projects that were given at architecture school. Yeah, I enjoyed my undergrad a lot more, and I felt less otherized in visual studies, definitely, for sure. So I think they're doing a good job there.
That's so good to hear. Thank you guys for sharing. Tolu, how should Black designers and creatives be discussed in a school setting? Should it be in a political sense?
I think obviously there's always politics in everything, but I think there are many avenues to explore when it comes to including information on Black designers within design. And while I'm not a deciding authority on like what should and shouldn't be included in the curriculum, well, at this point anyway, but based on my experience as an architectural studies student, I think it's not just about the courses. I think there should be avenues created for Black design educators to teach and to advance in design schools. And this also ties back to what Karla has been mentioning about not experiencing being taught by, I guess, Black professors or having Black TAs. And I think that is very, very important. I think there should also be opportunities that encourage Black students and I guess other people to research on designs by Black people, and the reason why I feel it's more important for I guess Black people to be able to have those opportunities in like at PhD levels or master's level is because it then creates a trickle down effect where they can then go into education and be able to share that knowledge on Black design, on designs done by Black people. And then I think the discussion surrounding design by Black people should also go within the education curriculum. I think we, and other people can speak on this, we're usually exposed to history and like European architecture or some type of colonial architecture. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but then I think there's definitely more to say about other types of architecture across the world, in Africa, in other parts of the world that are not just Eurocentric. And I think it's very important because it makes it possible for everyone to see that Black people have a lot to bring to the table. And it also makes it possible for Black people to be proud of their history, proud of other Black people, and also find ways to, I guess, encourage each other because they've seen it being done somewhere else.
That's true. It does bring a sense of also inclusivity when you see yourself or someone that can represent you like way better than a colonial person can. And I think it also just depends on instructors. I think there are a lot of instructors that are up and coming at Daniels that have certain interests, like global interests. And actually, Renee, I think you can speak on this. But before I ask you the question, we'll be taking questions from the floor and on our Google form momentarily. So please continue to submit your questions to tinyurl.com/SBD panel. I think Michelle just put it in the comments as well. So Renee, what was valuable and impactful about your architectural education? And maybe you can speak about some of the courses you've taken.
Yeah, definitely. So to echo what Tolu was saying, I think it is incredibly important to learn about the diverse typologies that Black architects and Black designers have created, because it's not just important, as Tolu said, because it shows what they can bring to the table, but also what they've been bringing to the table. Like there's a bunch of architectural forms that we use today that people don't know came from like Middle Eastern areas or from Africa or from different areas around the world. And they've just kind of been like appropriated to different cultures. So it's unclear where the history actually lies, but a lot of them do come from those areas. And I found out a lot more about global architecture in a course that I took with Peter Seeley this past year, just in my final year of school, called The History of Architectural Knowledge. And I had the amazing opportunity to also be a work study student for Peter. So I got to do research for that course as well as take the course. No conflict of interest. But it was an incredible experience just to be able to learn from him, both in a supervisorial sense and also as an instructor, because he has such a vast knowledge of global architecture, but and he also does his best to make sure all of his research is like as accurate as possible and give different students who may have a background in these different areas a chance to do the research themselves and bring it to the table and teach it with him alongside him in class. So that course I would recommend to any person who I've ever talked to at Daniels, because it just taught me a lot. Unfortunately, too late. I wish I had known about it earlier and not taken it in fourth year, but it did teach me a lot about what areas of architecture I want to continue to research even in my professional career.
That resonates actually, because I remember taking a global architecture course when I was an undergrad, and this is years ago. Like I was a guinea pig year. I think Ashita, Tolu, and I were guinea pig year. And taking that global architecture course, I learned stuff about my own background that I had no idea. I'm just like, whoa, that's East African. What? That's weird. So I get that. I think we definitely need more types of courses that are way more inclusive and just more like they're just broader in range. And Karla, about the things that you've been working on. You've been working with an NGO on climate change. How does your current work relate to supporting Black designers? And did your architectural education influence your work?
Thank you for that question. Part of what got me interested in architecture in the first place was seeing a need for adaptable and resilient housing and infrastructure in my home country, fit for the tribulations of the 21st century. So I come from a small island developing state that's on the front lines of climate change. Though what I learned at school was a bit far removed from the needs I saw at home and my lived experiences, I still hope that architecture can be part of the solution for climate change. Right now, the tropics are where many Black people live, and they're hard hit by a warming planet and rising seas. And many Black people who live in the global north live in neighborhoods with fewer trees and more concrete, and that traps more heat during heat waves. So, and there's nothing natural about that. So there are very material consequences to the neighborhoods that Black people reside in. I think that all Black lives matter, and the architecture profession needs to not just make zero emissions buildings, but especially as the earth becomes less hospitable, create forward-thinking environments that adapt to rising temperatures and are humane and not just meant to generate returns to investors. So even though I moved on from architecture discreetly, and I don't work in the profession, my interest in climate has remained, and that's why I work at the NGO. But the education I received at Daniels gave me the vocabulary and the insight of systems thinking. It developed my research abilities and imbued in me the belief that we can impact the environment around us. So that informs my work at the NGO. Just yesterday, I was a speaker at the Caribbean Youth for Climate Action Conference, where we're developing a youth statement going into COP26 in Glasgow. So I like to think that my design education and my research skills help me put together all the pieces that craft that holistic statement that we're going to carry into the conference.
Thanks so much, Karla. That's super powerful. And an actual, it's an action that we can call Daniels to take, that we need to have more courses on the tropics and heat islands, and just because we have international students, and why are we always teaching about the same stuff? So we are moving forward to our questions soon, but before that, I want to ask Michelle, what's next for the Daniels Art Directive?
Thank you. So, well, a lot, hopefully, but specifically in terms of this mural, we do hope to have like a bit more virtual programming and to support the featured artists as much as possible before it closes. We are curating an upcoming mural with the UofT Daniels faculty and Elder Wabgoon. Our call for proposals recently ended, and the advisory panel will be reviewing submissions, but it will be a First Nations, Métis, or Inuit artist creating a temporary mural to be installed on the north facade, which is where the Support Black Designers mural also was. So hopefully more news on that soon. And yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, for the Daniels Art Directive and everyone as well. And we're gonna try our best to do that.
So super exciting, and I'm sure it's going to be a learning process for all of us. So we have a couple questions. This one is for Karla. Karla, are you familiar with Camille Turner?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Camille Turner's work has been at the intersection of Canadian identity and Afrofuturisms. Could you speak more about your work when you were in Canada?
Yes, so I was involved in two of Camille Turner's performances. One was about protesting a pipeline, and the other one was an Afrofuturism piece where she did a walking tour around the city and went to different sites that were important to Black history and gave them that sort of respect and veneration that they might not get when you're walking by. There's no plaque. So for instance, there was a site which was a school where Black people weren't allowed to go to school, or a place where that used to be a Black neighborhood, or the oldest Black church in Toronto. And these sites no longer function in that capacity, but it's important to remember and to give pause and think about why these sites are not commemorated in the city compared to all the colonial sites and colonial monuments that are there. So I think that that's very important, because the act of walking and placemaking is very important when it comes to Black people. We don't always get to make the places where we reside. So I really enjoyed working with Camille Turner, and she's a great artist that you should check out if you're not familiar with her work.
That's so super cool. And I think Camille's video can be seen online, if I'm not mistaken. And she was walking around with a beauty pageant sash and a crown, right?
Yes, that's called Miss Canadiana.
That's Miss Canadiana, yeah. That you can find online, I think. Super powerful work. You guys really need to check it out. And Karla, we need to have a conversation about this after.
Sure.
Renee, our next question is for you. As a past student at the Daniels faculty and a member of the BSD, how effective did you feel this mural was at delivering its message? And if you can also just describe what BSD was and what you guys did.
Yeah, so I'm still a part of BSD as long as they'll let me be. It's a student group, but we're letting alumni be part of it because Clara and I are at the moment, she's the president, I'm the vice president. And it is basically a Black student group for Black students. We initially started as Black students at Daniels, which was still BSD. And it was for just the Black student community at Daniels to kind of get to know each other, because me and Clara only realized like in fourth year that we just had no idea who each other were. We'd always seen each other around. And we wanted to kind of get everybody connected and just give each other like a comfortable space to relax, but also have important discussions that maybe we're not having in class. We soon realized there's like 10 Black people at Daniels. So we decided to branch it out to Black students in design, keeping the same acronym to all the design students in U of T. And then we're actually also getting a few students from outside of U of T from different schools who like join some of our meetings and like to kind of put in discussions that they've been discussing at their schools, which has been incredibly enlightening. So yeah, with that's kind of what BSD was. What's the other part of the question?
How effective did you feel this mural was at delivering its message?
Yeah, so I think the mural was pretty effective at delivering its message. I mean, there's always more that everybody can do. So you can never say that it's completely effective. But I think it really did its job at sharing this message, especially with the publicity it got in the media, which I found amazing and so surprising that this amount of attention was being given to this mural created by students. Like, it was mind-blowing to me. So in the sense of getting media attention, I think it was pretty effective, but kind of like some of Karla's panels, it's really important for institutions to get this message. And in that way, I don't think it was completely effective, not to any discredit of the designers or everybody who worked on the mural. So I think that institutions could really get that message more clearly and do more towards their education practices, their curriculum, and just instructors that they're hiring as well.
Thanks so much, Renee. All right, our next question. We have to Tolu. What other projects would you consider taking part in the future after the success of this one?
So I think the most important thing for me with regards to this project was making sure that change actually happened at Daniels. So if I was to be ever involved in anything, it would be along the lines of not necessarily just the design, but making sure that actual practical changes come to the faculty. I tried to attend some of the meetings that were, I guess, organized by the faculty, but there's some, like, I would say barriers in the sense that you have to be voted in, or you have to have like there's something you have to be, or some I guess position you have to be in to be able to say specific things or to be able to ask for specific things at the faculty. And I think there needs to be more opportunities for, I guess, practical changes to come in the faculty. It might come as I don't know, take it as critical feedback. That's just how I see it. And more to Renee's point, yes, we did get a decent amount of publicity, but then the whole point of this is still students, and it's still like the design community.
Super, super important. Do we have any questions from the floor? We have a couple more questions that were submitted. So you can just turn on your mic and speak if you do have any questions. Okay, so we'll just continue on. Actually, this really goes well with the next question. Michelle, what changes have you seen the faculty take since the beginning of this mural?
So I'm not an expert on the faculty or anything. Tolu's mentioned the Diversity and Equity Office, which I believe was a work in progress. So they're figuring out some sort of new structure. I'm not entirely sure about that. But I know there are a lot of faculty members, for example, the advisors on the project. Renee's mentioned Peter Seeley, who I think is very good prof, who's very capable at doing that. I know Hans Iblings has also like reformed his curriculum to like be more diverse, especially because he's teaching like a first year history course on architecture. There's also Lily, the studio technologist, who's worked with us on both murals. She's kind of working on changing studio culture as well. Yeah, so a lot of, there's also like sessional lecturers who aren't there as long as some of the tenure professors, but I think there is change coming from different areas. It's just kind of a matter of grouping together and making that official, I guess. I don't know if it's constitution, but you know, the regulations of the institution itself, and of course reaching out to there is also a lot of outreach as well, like the youth camps, and I think Daniels has also partnered with Beta in some events or something. But yeah, I will look into that more.
Where do you think we can find more information, actually, if we are interested in the diversity and equity?
Yes, so I believe there's actually a page on the Daniels website for diversity and equity. There's also the outreach. Nini Brade is the manager of the external outreach office, and she's been wonderful. She worked with us on many events and the murals. So if you are interested in supporting the project or giving more ideas, you can reach out to Nini or Hannah, who's media, or yeah, looking on the Daniels website. Or if you're not sure, you can reach out to registrar, and I'm sure they can direct you to the best person. Yes, thank you, Sanjana. She's just dropped the link for the diversity and equity page there. The website is a bit confusing, though, even as a student. So no worries if you can't find stuff.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Sanjana. We have time for just one more question. Ashita, we have a question for you. What changes would you like to see in the future in terms of equality and representation at Daniels?
I would say obviously like changes and needs differ from time to time, and like, you know, there's like new needs coming up always. I think it's most important for the faculty to listen to its students. I don't think, like, you know, it's just, it shouldn't take a mural for them to have to listen to people. It's just something that they should be doing. If you know, there have been complaints, if there have been issues raised, like they should look into it immediately, and there should be new reforms immediately. That's something that I think I would like to see, just like problems being addressed as soon as they come up. Like, don't wait for all of the media, or don't wait for someone to come in and, you know, make a mural. You know, it's like, just do it. You know, people are saying there's issues, and they've been saying this for so many years. So it's just really time to listen. And this is for all design institutions and like places of work. It's like, you have to listen. And people have solutions. People, you know, that have these issues also always come with like, okay, this is how you can solve my problem. They just have to do it. So I think that would be really great to see in the future.
Yeah, in response to the comments in the Zoom chat, absolutely. I think we're gonna have to like send this video and tag them in every single. Thanks so much, Ashita. So we actually have 1 more minute, and I wanted to continue this conversation, but it's like we're on a time limit. I want to thank you, all of you guys, for being here today. To our audience, to the people listening on YouTube and Facebook, I am so excited to see all of our guests, like all of you guys, expand your individual practices, and I know we will continue to inspire positive growth as you guys have been doing. So thank you, Karla, Renee, Tolu, Ashita, and Michelle for this incredible panel discussion. This may be our last program for this mural as the Daniels Art Directive continues to move forward. So I'm like on the verge of tears because it's been a crazy like year working with you guys. I'm so appreciative. I want to thank the entire team behind the project, our artists, of course, designers, our curators, our club executives, our volunteers, sponsors, and the Daniels staff who tirelessly supported us, and our advisors. And again, thank you to the audience for watching and supporting the project. I hope you guys continue to support the project and continue this conversation. And it's been an honor to be part of this journey. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
For coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.